Hey everybody, I'm back. um, and check me out. Look, I'm in the daylight. There's just a switch, right? Actually, I think I've mentioned previously that I have been like ridiculously sick, and I had to get up and go to the doctor this morning, which sucks on a Saturday, but I just cannot get over this. Like I get sick and like I get a fever and I'm down, and then like I finally start feeling better and I'll do something like the other night when I recorded my video and I recorded and then I edited and then I put it up and it literally took me 8 hours. But I mean, it was a long video and I kind of expected that. What I did not expect though was that the entire next day I was not going to be able to get out of bed. Like it took me down. I was that tired again and exhausted. I don't know what is going on. Like that's why I keep going to the doctor. But let's hope I'm not dying or anything. I think it's just I'm in Jersey and I keep hearing I'm not the only one. Like people are just we just can't kick this whatever it is. It's not COVID. That I know. It's some kind of flu or something. Anyway, sorry for the blah blah. I think I have to give another one of my Willow warnings. She's not as bad today as she's been like the last few times I've tried to record, but you probably will see the tail. I can't control that. It happens. She's staring at me right now. Like I gave her TREATS. I can't say the word again or she'll start screaming at me. But hopefully that'll satisfy her and maybe she'll like go to sleep. All right. So I know I mentioned it at the very end of my Idaho video and like you guys, this case, I'm going to talk about this case today that's like really old. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I've only seen a handful of YouTubers even mention this woman. Like, I don't know why. Well, I mean, it happened a long time ago, so maybe that's why, like, people don't really know about it. But not only was her crime horrific, but she's escaped from prison twice. So, yeah, I don't really know why people don't talk more about her. But I think maybe we used to, like, back in the day. But, it kind of faded out, I suppose. There was a movie made about her, and one of my favorite actresses ever played her. In fact, I named my daughter after this particular actress. But anyway, let me get to all that. To start off, this happened in 1983, and the reason why I'm so familiar with this is I mentioned this at the end of my last video, but in case any of you guys didn't make it that far because it was a long video, my Idaho one, the this woman like when I got into true crime, like the thing that really got me into it was my father used to have a collection of like true crime books, like back before the internet was a thing because I'm that old. I think I was about 12 12 or 13 when I got like really interested in well, first of all it was Ted Bundy that I was really interested in. So my father had a copy of the Anne Rule book, The Stranger Beside Me, and I read it front to back and I was like mind blown. First of all, that was the first like true crime case that I really like got that detailed. Like in the middle of that book there's like 5 or 6 pages of photos. So like, we didn't have the internet, but let me tell you how wonderful Anne Rule was as a true crime writer. She was amazing. This book was great. And they made a movie, the Ted Bundy movie. It was called The Stranger Beside Me. Now, it's the woman, Anne Rule, she actually knew Bundy. She knew him. She actually, because I don't know how many of you guys know this, but Ted Bundy, like, I don't know why or what the hell would possess him to, but he worked, I think volunteered even, as a person who answered the phone at a suicide hotline. So yeah, that's mind-blowing. You have somebody going out and murdering women, but at the same time he's talking to people about, hey, don't kill yourself, you're loved. Like, what? Ted Bundy blew my mind. But you know how people ask who's your favorite serial killer, which is like kind of a weird and like loaded question? Bundy is always mine. Like, I swear to God, I don't think any of the other serial killers out there have ever been quite as interesting as Bundy was. He was so messed up. But I digress. Anne Rule also wrote a book called Small Sacrifices, and this was the second true crime book that I read, which was also in my father's collection, and I figured since I enjoyed her book on Bundy so much, let me find out what this is about. Well, it was the story of Diane Downs, Elizabeth Diane Downs, but she goes by Diane. And this woman, she's diagnosed and like she's her mental issue that makes her the way she is they call her a deviant sociopath. I'm not quite sure if that's like different from like a regular sociopath, but she's also like she has like no conscience. She's so cold and she has no emotions. She's like, and 1983, we had none of the technical DNA, all this stuff that we have now, but we did have ballistics, and we did have, regular police work, and we had cops who interviewed this woman day one and knew something was not right, because she's a weirdo. I will show you guys some photos along the way, of course, like I always do, but I just want to explain to you, like, they suspected that something was off with her the second they met her. Like, it's not like she wasn't lying and trying to hide what she did, but she was, like, completely just, like, blocked off. There was nothing there. So as it goes, let me see what the date was that this happened. Well, let me tell you a little bit about her first before I jump right into the crime. She was, she was born in August 7th of 1955, which makes her the same age as my mother. And, her, parents are Wesley and Willadine, and the last name is Fredrickson. She has testified now that her father SA'd her when she was 12. She tried to commit suicide by slitting her wrist when she was 13. She came from a family with strict conservative values, and growing up, she followed their values, but by the age of 14, she became completely rebellious and dropped the Elizabeth from her name and went by Diane. So she graduated from Moon Valley High School in Phoenix. And there she met a man named Steve Downs, who would later be her husband. Her parents did not approve of the relationship, but she continued on with it. After high school, she enrolled in Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in Orange, California, but listen to this, expelled after 1 year due to promiscuous behavior. Yo, they can kick you out of school for being a hoe. And she was a hoe. Like, oh my God, this woman. I'm only just opening the can, you guys. The worms are just everywhere. So, on November 13th, 1973, Diane and Steve got married. After Diane ran away from home. They had their first child in 1974. Her name was Christy Ann. And then she had another daughter named Cheryl Lynn in 1976. And then her third child's name was Stephen Daniel, and he was born in 1979. Steve divorced her in 1980 because she was, of course, cheating. And Stephen was pretty sure that the third child, the son, was not even his. On May 8th, 1982, Diane actually had a baby girl named Jennifer as a surrogate. So, she, for a little while, she wanted to open her own surrogacy clinic. Like, she had all these wild ideas. She always had all these plans, but she never did anything about them. Like, she talked big, but nothing ever came of it. And she said something about how making babies is so easy, and she just wanted to help this couple, and blah, blah, blah. But she got $10,000. Like, I don't know how much it was about wanting to help them, or, just because she's a hoe and she gets pregnant at the drop of a hat, so she knew it would work. But, so yeah, she had the baby, and she gave it away, and, she said it felt so good helping these people, and blah, blah, blah. Alright. So basically, like, I mean, that's like the story of where her life was. She had moved from Phoenix to Springfield, Oregon, and she moved the three kids with her there. I think, yeah, her parents were close by, and her dad and her were both letter carriers with the post office. So, on May 19th, 1983, Diane drove into the like drive up area of the Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield, Oregon. She pulled up in her brand new Nissan Pulsar, which was the first vehicle she ever bought by herself. And she pulled in just screaming, "Help me, help me, help me. He shot my kids." She had three children in the car, all covered in blood, bullet wounds in all three of the kids. And she had one in her arm. And, let me see. She said that she was driving home from her friend's house. She decided to take the scenic route home. The kids were asleep because it was past 9 o'clock, and her children were young. So she claimed that during this drive home, around 10 o'clock, she saw a strange man standing in the road, flagging her down. She said she pulled over and got out to talk to the man. She described him as a bushy-haired stranger. Now, in 1983, there were like 20 million bushy-haired stranger, like, criminals out there. It was like the thing that you said. Like, I don't know what it was, but like that was a thing. I don't know and really anything more about that, because let me think. I was like 8 when this happened. Anyway, so she said she got out of the car to talk to him, and he demanded the car keys. She said that she refused to give the keys. They got into a physical altercation, and that resulted in him shooting her in the left arm. And he opened the driver's side door and shot all three of the kids. She said that she pretended to throw her keys in a bush, and like when the man was distracted, she jumped in the car and sped off to the nearest hospital. She told the police she drove off so fast that the door closed by itself. Okay? Keep that in mind, because there's something that comes up later. This woman is so full of shit. Alright. So, Cheryl was 7 years old, and she was already dead. Danny was only 3, and he was paralyzed from the waist down, and Christy was 8, and she had suffered a stroke. So, like, Christy was, I mean, every kind of tube and thing in her, like, they were keeping her alive, and it was really, really touch and go with her. She had a stroke, so she had to relearn how to talk, and the whole bit. Like, her left arm is still, I don't know if it's still messed up, but it was paralyzed for a while, and the little boy, the little one, 3 years old, never will walk again. Okay? So, like, let me see if it says with the, hospital. So, Diane was in the hospital for a while, and, just because of the gunshot wound in her left arm, which, ironically is not her dominant arm, so, uh, if this happened today, they probably would have locked her up the day that it happened, but they had to, do some investigating and whatnot, so it took a little while, but eventually she was released from the hospital, and they had the funeral for Cheryl, the one that passed away. Like, Diane picked out the clothing and everything, and of course was accepting all kinds of gifts and sympathy and playing the grieving mom. Only, like, we never saw this woman cry one tear. Like, never, okay? She was blank. There was nothing there. Like, just... In fact, when she's sitting in the emergency room, the doctor says that her kid's dead, and, that her other daughter is, messed up and she's had a stroke. Diane said something like, yeah, well, I don't want her to be a vegetable. So, like, if you have to, just shut the machines off. Like, what? What? Yeah, I mean, what? And then she said something else about, like, there's all this blood in my car. Are you kidding me right now? She's talking about her car and the fact that don't sustain her life. I don't want her to be a vegetable. Bro. Yeah. I mean, and as I'm telling this story, I hope you guys can understand why this has stuck with me my whole life and why I was, like, really wanting to do a video on her. Because, I in my book, she's, like, the worst female criminal that I can ever think of. I mean, in my opinion, I think she's worse than that Susan Smith chick. She's worse than Andrea Yates. She's worse than Darlie Routier. And even, and I know Eileen Wuornos was a completely different type of criminal, but even Eileen Wuornos could show emotion sometimes. All right? Like, Diane is just, wow. And you know how, like, some women will eventually admit what they did and ask for forgiveness? To this day, Diane is still on the bushy-haired stranger. But, alright, let me go on to explain, like, how this all unfolded around this bitch. So, yeah, she got out of the hospital, had the funeral, and then, suspicions heightened when Diane went to visit her daughter, well, her kids, at the hospital. And there was a guy back in Arizona that she was sleeping with, another mailman. Like, they were both letter carriers together, and she had an affair with him. He was married. His name was Robert Knickerbocker, but everybody called him Nick, like, as a nickname. So as she's at the hospital visiting her kid, she calls this man, and, like, you're calling him from the hospital when your kids are, like, laying there almost dead? Like, what? And, she went in to visit Christy, who, like I said, she's got all these, things in her, and the little, monitors for her heart rate and stuff. And the, one of the main, cops, or was he I'm not sure if he was a cop or a prosecutor, but, I think he was a prosecutor. His wife was sitting in the room that day, just, like, watching over the kids. I mean, this hurt the whole community, like, seriously. And they watched as this woman, Diane, comes in to visit her daughter, leans in to give her a kiss, and, like, is whispering in her ear. The kid's not even, like, conscious, okay? But as Diane is standing there, they can see Christy's heart rate is, like, spiking. You know what I mean? This little girl was literally terrified of her own mother. So, side number one, like I said, she was messed up. Couldn't speak, had to relearn, a whole lot of stuff. And she was just a kid. So, I mean, this was hard on her. Plus, her little sister's dead. Her little brother is not able to walk ever again. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, just a very, extremely messed up situation. So, also the forensic evidence. Now, they didn't, like I said, 1983, they didn't have the technology that they do today. But even then, they knew that it didn't match. There was no blood spatter on the driver's side of the car. And there was no gunpowder residue on the driver's door or on the interior door panel. So, Knickerbocker, also reported that Diane had straight up stalked him. He said that he really thought that she might kill his wife because she was that nuts. I mean, he ended the affair. He told her many, many times that he wanted nothing to do with her. But she kept at it. She kept at it. She kept at it. She moved out of state. This happens to her kids And she's calling him. Like, what did she think he was going to do? Rush up there to, like, be her hero? Yeah, and it gets worse. So, yeah, Nick said that, he thought she might kill his wife, and he stated that he was relieved when she left for Oregon, and he was able to reconcile with his wife. So Diane never told the police that she owned a .22 handgun. Both Steve Downs and Nick told the authorities that she did. Now, the investigators discovered that she had bought the handgun in Arizona. They never could find it, but they did find unfired casings in her home that had extractor marks on it, just like Delphi. So, I mean, when they finally released that Delphi affidavit, the first thing that popped in my head was Diane Downs, because I remember this. I remember the extractor marks that's part of the evidence that they had against her. Like, she had bullets in her bedroom that had been in and out of this .22, which, guess what? Same gun that shot her children. So, yeah, they never did find the weapon, but they did find the unfired casings, and one of the most damaging things was there were witnesses, like, behind her car. You know how, I drove so fast that the door slammed shut and I raced to the hospital because, I was trying to save my babies. There were witnesses driving, like, that saw her. They were driving behind her. The woman was going so slow, between 5 to 7 miles an hour. Like, the one guy said that he was behind her, and at some points, she was going so slow that his speedometer wouldn't even register. She was crawling to the hospital, trying to let her children bleed out in her car. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the prosecution. Prosecutors argued that Diane shot her kids so that she could continue her affair with Nick. Nick, one of the first things he told her when they were fooling around was that he had a vasectomy at a young age and he never wanted children. It's not like he hates them or anything, but he's not interested in being a father. And he was playing with her. He never intended to, leave his wife or whatever, or, have a future with her. He was being, a scumbag, basically, and cheating on his wife with his coworker. He did not love her. He didn't want really anything to do with her except for sex. And he, immediately regretted that, because she was, the stalker level insane. So, prosecutors, most of the case against her rested on the testimony of her surviving daughter, Christy, who, once she recovered the ability to speak, she described in court how Diane shot all 3 of those kids on the side of the road, and then she shot herself in the arm. Her daughter said that. Her daughter remembered it. It took her a long time to speak it because, like I said, stroke. It took a long time and a lot of counseling and people that were able to help her and explain to her, that it was okay, because she loves her mom, right? Even though this happened, all kids love their mom. And she didn't want her mom to, be gone forever, but at the same time, she was terrified of her. And her little sister was dead. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, psychiatrists, you know how I said the deviant sociopath thing, that's right here, but they also diagnosed her with narcissistic, histrionic, and antisocial personality disorders. Big surprise, right? So, her 2 surviving children eventually went to live with the lead prosecutor. Yeah, that's who it was. That was him and his wife. They adopted them in 1986. I think that's a really, really amazing and sweet part of this story. I mean, it would never happen today, because the law just doesn't work like that. They'd probably be conflict of interest and blah, blah, blah. But I actually think it's a really super cute story that she did, they did go to a good, loving family, and they did go on to have, normal and fulfilled lives, but without their sister, without their families, everything, their whole lives were changed because of Diane and her selfishness. they found letters in her apartment. Now, her apartment, like I said, they had just recently moved from Phoenix, right? But Diane only cared about herself. I mean, it was obvious. Like, the refrigerator had no food in it. And there was, like, she still had boxes that she'd never unpacked. The kids, like, it was ridiculous that she had, like, unpacked her bedroom and there were, like, negligees laying around and stuff from, her being a hoe. But, like, it didn't even look like children lived there. She just didn't give a crap about her kids. They were nothing more than a pain in her butt that she wanted to get rid of because Nick didn't want kids. And she somehow thought that if she didn't have kids, he would want her. You guys. She was like Casey Anthony times 3. All right. So, and prior to her arrest, Diane, this bitch went out and got herself pregnant again. Like, she just seduced some guy on her mail route so that she could purposely get pregnant because she thought the jury would be sympathetic towards her if she showed up in court pregnant. So, she showed up in court, huge as a house. Let me tell you something. It did not get her any kind of sympathy. In fact, I think it made it worse because people were like, oh my god, this woman is still breeding. Yeah. So, this was her 5th child. She did give birth to a baby girl. She named the baby girl Amy Elizabeth a month after the trial. 10 days before she was sentenced, the baby was seized by the state of Oregon, of course, and then adopted out by a couple named Chris and Jackie Babcock. They renamed the baby Rebecca. Rebecca went on to have a very normal life with her normal parents. I mean, until she found out about Diane, and she went on kind of a little bender for a while, and I mean, who could blame her? Her adoptive parents were, of course, planning to tell her, but unfortunately, she had a babysitter who decided it would be funny to show her the movie Small Sacrifices, and, like, yeah. Rebecca did do an Oprah show, so it was nice to see how beautiful and normal she is. She has a son. She's a wonderful person. I mean, she is. She tried to write Diane at one point to try to, find out, if there was anything, like, left in there that, you know what I mean? Like, not trying to be, like, her daughter, but just trying to see where she came from. And that ended up just messing her up because Diane went from, like, being kind of nice in the letters and, like, oh, we have the same chin. Don't you hate it? Because she does have a weird chin. But, like, Diane, not Rebecca. Rebecca's beautiful. Yeah, like, and then her letters, like, changed. And she started, like, who are you with? What do you, like, these conspiracy theories. Diane has gone, like, crazy in jail after all these years, okay? But she does, like, all these conspiracy theories in her head, and she thinks everybody is, like, out to get her, and, like, still trying to pass this stupid bushy-haired stranger stuff. Come on, woman. We all know you did it. Maybe if you, like, fucking apologized. She's been up for parole, and she keeps on getting denied, because she still won't say, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I swear to God, I think she would get paroled if she would just fucking take some accountability. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's still denied. They're never going to let her out until she, like, at least shows some kind of rehabilitation. And I personally hope she keeps it up and never gets out, because I don't think she, even at like 80-something or 70-something years old, she's not that old. I'm like, my mom's not that old. Yeah, no, she's like older and she doesn't look so great. So, like, I guess I thought she was older for a second because I was thinking about what she looked like at her last parole hearing. My mom looks so much better than her. But, yeah, so I just don't think that, I mean, number one, I don't think she's ever going to take accountability, so I don't think I'll ever let her out. And I just think that she will always be a danger to society. Because there's just no conscience. She's out there, you guys. I'm not kidding. Like, you guys should watch, because her parole hearings and stuff are on YouTube. You guys should check that out, because they're like something else. Fucking crazy. Yeah, bushy-haired stranger, my ass. Oh, and I didn't even tell you guys how she changed the story like 10 times. Like, at first she didn't know who he was, then she did know who he was, then he called her by name, then there was two of them. I mean, it was ridiculous. Every, like, week she had a different story, and then she tries to pull, like, say, oh, it was my dreams, and I wasn't sure what was real, and you guys had me thinking that, yeah, right, Diane. Just, yeah, right. Blah. So, Rebecca appeared on Oprah Winfrey in 2020, and she discussed how she felt about Diane. She said that she wrote her in her younger years and states that she completely regrets it because now she's nothing but a monster, which, I mean, yeah, she is a monster. So she was initially incarcerated at the Oregon Women's Correctional Center in Salem. On July 11th, 1987, she escaped. She escaped from her cell by scaling an 18-foot razor wire fence. She threw a jacket over the razor wire, and that's how she was able to get over without cutting herself up to shit. She was out for 10 days. They couldn't find her. She managed to evade law enforcement despite a 14-state manhunt. And then she was recaptured, and guess where? This bitch was shacked up with another inmate's husband, right down the street from the jail. Yup. More men, more hoeing, and this time an inmate's husband. Like, she's disgusting, you guys. She's in jail, and, like, I'm sure that some woman, like, tried to be friends with her, and, like, maybe at some point in casual conversation it came up that her husband lives close by the prison, but, like, they found her, and she's smiling this big smile when they caught her, because she probably just got laid for 10 days. What a hoe. Anyway. She received an additional 5 years for the escape, and then after the recapture, she was transferred all the way to my lovely state of New Jersey. And she was here at the Clinton Correctional Facility for Women. Ironically, I used to live across the street from that jail. And after that was after heavy lobbying from Hughie, the man who adopted her kids. Like, he was like, get her the hell out of here. Like, if she's somewhere far away where she doesn't know anybody, like, even if she does escape, what's she gonna do, right? So, and also the prison where he was only 66 miles from his home where he had the children, so, he didn't want her anywhere near Christy and Danny. And despite significant security upgrades at the women's facility after the escape, state officials accepted the argument that she was a risk for harm to Christy and Danny, and in the event of another escape, it was too great for her to stay in Oregon. In 1994, after serving 10 years, she was transferred to California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. She left Jersey and was transferred to California. While in prison, she earned an associate degree in general studies. In 2010, she was relocated to Valley State Prison for Women in Chowchilla, California, but was transferred out of the facility when it was converted to an all-males institution in 2013. So, yeah, so Anne Rule wrote Small Sacrifices in 1987, which detailed her life and the murder trial. The book documented accounts from friends, acquaintances, neighbors, and her daughter, Christy, who questioned the quality of her parenting, obviously. And then they made the movie, made-for-TV movie. It was also titled Small Sacrifices. It was a mini-series on ABC in 1989, and Farrah Fawcett played her. And let me tell you something. The Burning Bed was good. What was that other one that she did? I can't think of the name of it. It's the other one about men that hit women. I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, in my opinion, when she played Diane, she nailed it. She did so good. And that movie is amazing. And it is also fully on YouTube for free. So if you guys want to check out, see this story in movie version, you gotta watch it. It's incredible. Farrah plays Diane, and Farrah's husband, or boyfriend, well, I don't know, the one that she's been with, for most of her life, he plays Nick, who in the movie is Lou, but, his real name was Nick. They changed the names of a lot of the people, the kids and Nick and I mean even Steve. His name's like Boy Paul in the movie, which anyway. But yeah, they changed the names, obviously because they don't want to use the real people's names. But the movie's incredible, and Farrah Fawcett did amazing. Like I think, in my opinion, it was I think her best ever role. She did so good. All right. So let's talk about the parole hearings because they're actually comical. Um, so yeah, her sentence meant that she could not be considered until 2009 under Oregon law. A dangerous offender, she would have been eligible for a parole hearing every 2 years until she is either released or dies. In her first application for parole in 2008, she reaffirmed her innocence. Diane insisted that over the years I have told you and the rest of the world that a man shot me and my children. I have never changed my story. Yeah, okay. I already went over that. She certainly did change it many times. Her first parole hearing was on December 9th, 2008. Lane County District Attorney Douglas, oh God, how do you say this? Harkleroad? Harcleroad, Harkleroad, I guess, wrote to the parole board and said, Diane continues to fail to demonstrate any honest insight into her criminal behavior even after her convictions. She continues to fabricate new versions of events under which the crimes occurred. He also wrote that she alternately refers to her assailants as a bushy-haired stranger, two men wearing ski masks, or drug dealers and corrupt law enforcement officials. You see what I mean? There's a million different versions. Diane participated in the hearing from the state prison. She was not permitted a statement, but answered questions from the parole board. After 3 hours of interviews and 30 minutes of deliberation, she was denied. Downs faced her second parole hearing on December 10th, 2010, and was denied again. Her next parole hearing was scheduled in 2010 and set for 2020, and again denied. Alright, so Christy, her first child, who testified at the trial, suffers from a speech disability. She has a son born in 2005 and a daughter who she named Cheryl in honor of her late sister. Diane's surrogate child, Becky, originally named Amy by Diane, was born when Diane awaited trial for murder. She was born in June 1984 and was adopted into the Babcock family and given the name Rebecca. When she was a teenager, she found out who her biological mother really was. She went down the bad path, dropping out of high school, getting into drugs, and ended up having her son Christian at only 17. 3 years later, Becky was homeless in women's shelters and eventually fell pregnant again. She decided that she could not raise a child in the condition and environment she was in and ultimately decided to put her second child up for adoption. The immense pain and numbness she felt after giving up her child left her wondering if her mother, Diane Downs, felt that way when she gave Becky up. So that's when she began writing letters back and forth. But then it resulted in Becky cutting her off after the tone of Diane's letters started to change, revealing her true colors. After a long identity battle, Becky began to realize that she was not the same person as her biological mother was and finally was able to receive closure and rebuild her life again. So that's pretty much the story. And I'm going to show you guys some pictures and everything so you can, see as we go along. But yeah, for sure you want to check out the movie Small Sacrifices because it's really, really, really good. It's almost like word for word from the book. Like they don't really even dramatize much. It's all very accurate. And Farrah does an excellent job of oh, my car, and it don't sustain her life. Just pull the plug. I don't want her to be a vegetable. You know what I mean? Just sick shit. Oh, I forgot to mention, there was even a point where, before the trial, before Diane was locked up, her kids, like I said, Chrissy was being, she's working intensely with, counselors and people trying to help her regain her speech and be able to, express what happened, that night. At first, she didn't want to tell on her mom. I understand, this poor little girl, I understand, it was really, really hard for her. So the counselor would have her, write down the name of the person who hurt her and then, either tear it up or burn it. She didn't have to, nobody had to read it, but it was her way of, or the counselor's way of getting her to at least admit it to herself, I guess. And eventually, like, they took pillows, and each pillow represented a kid, and they had her pretending to be her mom. You know what I mean? And like she like walks around to where the trunk would be and like pulls it open and walks around, and she reaches her hand into the car, and here you see her hand go like this. You know what I mean? Like, she knew. She knew all along. I can't imagine how it must affect you to watch your mother look you in the face and shoot you twice in the chest. How? Oh, that's another thing. When she got, like, when the doctors were talking to her about the little boy, one that was paralyzed, she shot him in the back. And, like, I guess it hit his spine, and that's why he's never going to walk again. But she actually looked at the doctor and said, oh, it missed his heart. Like, she was upset. Like, that's what she was trying. She was trying to shoot him in the heart. Ugh. And the little one that she did succeed in killing, that's the one that she used to tell everybody, oh, that kid's ugly, and like, she just... What mother calls their child ugly? Even if the kid has, like, 3 ears, you know what I mean? Like, you're a mom. Your kid is beautiful. I don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, if my kid had been born, like I said, 3 ears or, like, another eye in the middle of her forehead, I would still think she's the most beautiful thing in the world because she's my baby. You know what I mean? Like, how do you go around telling people my kid's ugly? You know what? Like... I don't know if that's why she was the one to die, but, like, she was on the floor in the passenger side, and Diane shot her, and I guess she actually tried to get out of the car because they found blood spatter on the outside of the passenger side of the door, so, or not, I don't know if it was spatter or just blood in general. Like, she tried to get out, Diane pulled her back in and shot her again. Ay! I just can't. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. She admitted she had two guns, but she never would admit that she had the 22, because the 22 is the one she used. They never did recover it, but, you know what? I think they actually did recover it, like, years later. And nothing really came of that, because you can't convince me this woman's not guilty. Like, I don't care what she did with the gun, or who ended up having it, like... I did hear there was no gunshot residue on her hands, so that kind of, weirds me out a little, but I think she either wore gloves and threw them out the window on her way to the hospital, or, I don't know. Or maybe she just washed her hands before they ever swabbed them. I don't, they weren't, it was 1983, they weren't doing the kind of police work they do now, unfortunately, because it was a long time ago, but they still got her, you know what I mean? She still had bullets in her bedroom that had been in and out of that same 22 that she used to kill her children. So, I mean, that's what they have on the guy in Delphi. I hope it's strong enough to get him. And I hope they have more stuff they didn't put in that affidavit, because, like, I am seriously worried that they might not get a conviction on Richard Allen, but that's another story. I digress. So yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I would really love to know. Have you guys ever even heard this story before? Please give me the subscribes. I need them so bad, you guys. Like me, share me, whatever you want to do, but please, 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 please subscribe. I need it so badly. Seriously, I keep seeing my views go up, and I only have like 4 subscribers a day. Like, oi, please, guys, please. Because I will not even get monetized until I hit, I think it's 1,000 subscribers. So I'm not even at 50. I really need your help. Yeah, and I'm gonna put up, of course, at the end of all my videos now, I'm putting up my PayPal and my Cash App, just because, I won't be monetized for a really long time. So if you think I'm doing a good job, you want to drop me a buck or something, I'm giving you my stuff just in case you feel like it. Not begging, you know what I mean? Like, totally it's your choice. If you're like a millionaire and you have lots of money. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but yeah, I've wanted to talk about Diane for a long, long time, and I shared the book around, with people that I knew back then. I let them all borrow it, and, the movie, I've showed it to a lot of people. Just, it's one of the most fascinating cases I have ever come across. Like how I said Bundy's my favorite serial killer, well, Diane is my favorite lunatic. Like, I have never... The other women who do this to their children, it isn't because a dude doesn't want them because they have kids. Well, except maybe Susan Smith. Was that the one? I don't know. One of them had something similar going on where they had a guy that didn't want kids. But Diane was like, wow, you guys. And like I said, Nick, he was afraid she was going to kill his wife. And I wouldn't put it past her. Not even for a minute. Like, she was... There was no stopping her. She was going to get what she wanted. You know what I mean? And then she didn't. And that's really awesome. But Nick, that poor guy, he should have kept it in his pants at work and he never would have had this problem. But, Diane was a hoe. She would just do anybody. And, Ryan O'Neal, that's the guy who, and Extremities, that's the movie. Oh, those are the things I couldn't think of before. Is it Extremities? I think that was what it was called. That one where... I don't know. I know Burning Bed. That was the one where he was beating the crap. That's a hard movie to watch, you guys. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but like, seriously, about domestic violence, that was, no, that was good. It was very realistic because she was played a battered wife who eventually had to kill her abusive husband, and it was very good. But Small Sacrifices, Farrah did such a good job playing Diane that I almost felt bad for Diane. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was that good of a performance. Because I have no sympathy for Diane Downs. I really, really don't. Like, I'm saying she still won't admit it. I would have a lot more... I don't think I could ever forgive her straight up, but I think I would have a lot more, like, reason to if she would at least admit that she did it. It bothers me that to this day she's still trying to say it was someone else. Like, we all know it was you, Diane. For 5 seconds, when I heard there was no gunshot residue, it kind of threw me a little bit. And I did hear something about the weapon being found with, like, a drug dealer or something. But that really, all that means is that somebody out there found it and kept it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that she didn't have it to use on her kids, because she did. I mean, her 8-year-old daughter wasn't going to get up there and lie. Like, can you imagine how hard it must have been for that little girl to sit there on the stand, look her mother in the face, and admit, my mom shot us. My mom killed my sister. My mom paralyzed my brother. My mom messed me up where I had to learn how to talk again. You know what I mean? Like, that's some cruel, cold, horrible shit. And the woman, like, she didn't even shed a tear. She cared about her car. She asked if she could go to work the next day. And then she went on and on about how bad her arm hurts. Oh, I had to have a pin. And then Anne Rule was on Oprah. That's another thing you guys ought to check out, because that's on YouTube as well. Anne Rule was on Oprah, and she had Diane on the show also from jail. And Diane's sitting there on, like, the closed circuit TV or whatever, and she's... Anne, you're laughable. You made so much up in that book. Ha ha ha. You know what? Oh my God. And like, Anne's like, Diane. It's like, it's actually extremely interesting to watch. She just denies. And like, Oprah's audience is like, oh, it's crazy. Oh yeah. So seriously, check that out. Check out Oprah. Check out the parole hearings. It's all on YouTube. If I can finally figure out how to get this stuff in my description of this video, I will, but I'm using this program to edit, and I can't seem to find that function in the program. If I can't put it on this video, I'll make a post in my community tab, and I'll give you guys the links to those videos, because I think you'd really enjoy them. And the movie is also available on YouTube, the whole thing. It's not the greatest copy, but it was 1983, so don't expect DVD quality or anything, but it's really, really good, and I really recommend it. And even if you ever are able to get your hands on the book, that's as amazing as the movie, but the movie's, like, to visually see it, and they did such a great job, especially Farrah Fawcett, who, rest in peace, that woman, I loved her so much. I grew up watching Charlie's Angel. My daughter's name is Farrah. I named her after Farrah. So yeah, I'm really glad that I got to talk about this, because, like I said, it's been with me my whole life. One of the first ever true crime cases that I ever heard about, and I was so horrified by what she did, and how she just doesn't seem to care about it, and she never, ever will admit it. I think she's probably going to pass away soon in prison, and I don't think that she will ever admit what she did. She said she made some kind of statement when COVID was going around about how she said that she was always watching the cases in Oregon because she knows that's where her kids are. I'm like, now you care about whether they get COVID? She's such a liar. But anyway, yeah, I'm really glad that I was able to do this, and I hope that y'all check out the Diane Downs information online, which you can, because it's crazy. And one little thing I want to mention at the end, and this is totally like craziness, but have you guys ever seen Teen Mom 2? There's the one that got fired because her husband is like a dog murderer and crazy person. That chick, her name's Janelle Evans, and she has the strangest resemblance to Diane Downs. Yikes. They're not related in any way, shape, or form. It's just really creepy when you see... Well, yeah, there's a side-by-side, and I'm going to put it in here so you guys can see it. Because, yeah, that's just freaky as hell. And I can't be the only one saying it, because when you Google Diane Downs, there's a lot of like side by sides with Janelle Evans, and it's just funny because obviously I'm not the only one that's seen it. It's weird. I don't know what I mean, and I like Janelle may be a horrible parent, but she's nowhere near as bad as Diane Downs. Oh, this woman. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think, is she not like way worse than most of the female like murderers that we see out there? Like, how do you do something like that to your 3 kids just because some guy that you're sleeping with doesn't want kids? There are letters and letters and letters and diaries and everything that they found in her apartment that's all about how all she wanted was this guy, and oh, you know, like, I don't understand how you could not want me just because of my kids. Yeah, that's not the only reason, bitch. You're nuts. But yeah, I think the poor man probably felt horrible, like it was his fault. But it wasn't. She was just a lunatic. And I think all these years later, the only person that's still standing by her is her brother. And I don't know why. I mean, I think he really ought to face reality. She is so guilty, and she'll never admit that she is. And the brother's like still trying to get her paroled or whatever. But he really needs to just convince her to frickin' admit it and say she's sorry, and then maybe she'd have a chance. But she's too like, I don't know if it's pride or just like insanity. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you so much for watching again. I apologize. I went on and on. Have an awesome day, and I will see you all soon.